Hi, I'm Angelo Costanza and you're watching Purebred Reds Adelaide United Fan TV.
G'day guys and welcome to the Purebred Reds Adelaide United Fan TV. I'm your host Ellis Gelios and I'm absolutely thrilled today to be joined in the studio by the father of Craig Goodwin, Mr. Tony Goodwin. Tony, great to get you in. How are you today and how have you seen the whole season as a whole with Craig involved back at Adelaide United?
Yeah, good as it's so far it's been great this year. I mean, obviously the FA Cup was probably went much better than expected from him, but coming back, I think he's done the right move. So yeah, couldn't be happier.
Brilliant. We're also in to preview the Brisbane Roar game on Saturday night, but the crux of the video is basically devoted towards listening to Tony speak about Craig's upbringing and basically his entire football story, his journey, which is quite a remarkable one. A lot of things that have happened throughout the time of his professional pathway, which people might not be aware of. And so we're really, really grateful that you've come in, Tony, someone that definitely appreciates the fanaticism that a lot of Adelaide United supporters display. And it's great to see how close you are to the fans as well, because I think that's pretty unique for a parent of a player that's not only professional, but the star in a team. To make yourself so available to the fans and to always offer a chit chat is a fantastic thing. So it's great that we've got you on Fan TV and can't wait to hear more about Craig's story. So we'll get into it from right at the off in the earliest time you have, remembering Craig, how he came up as a young boy. I understand was never seen without a football, knew that he wanted to be a footballer from his earliest memory. Why don't you tell us a little bit about those earliest times that you remember, and just how you and him both knew that he'd eventually make it?
Yeah, well, I mean, he basically was never without a ball since he was 2 years old. So when he got to 4 years old, he followed his brother into Monopara City, completely obsessed with the game. Even when he was at school, the wife was there with him and they were all asking the kids, what did you want to be when you grow up? Fireman, doctor, lawyer, all the kids and the usual jobs. And Craig puts his hand up in professional football. I mean, well, you've got to be really good and dedicated. Yeah, I know, that's what I want to do. So that's basically where it all started for him. He just had nothing else in his eyes but want to be a professional footballer. And Fernando Torres was his absolute idol at Liverpool. So
he's a Liverpool fan?
He is.
I can't love this guy anymore.
Yeah. Should be Crystal Palace.
So basically, his first club, Monopara.
Monopara, yes.
Yeah. So
just down the road. So
talk us through that.
Yeah. Well, he basically started there as a 4-year-old in under sixes. Worked his way up through the ranks. Was always a left winger. He just showed natural ability, and he just never stopped running. Was never without the ball. Had a big kick on him for a little kid. You know, pretty wiry and skinny. But yeah, worked his way up to under 12s, and then we realised at that time he had to go to federation level, so we went to Para Hills and on to Enfield, and then things happened and he had a lot of recommendations to go to Raiders, where he made his I think he had one early gig for Enfield as senior, but then as soon as he went to Raiders, he was seniors from straight away.
Yeah, right. So then Tony, he goes from Raiders and somehow finds himself in Victoria. Just let us know how that came about. Yeah,
basically he had a recommendation to a coach that inquired about him, and they flew him over and they saw him for 3 sessions and they said sign here. So he basically went from there, and then from Oakley, I mean, kicking the winning goal that kicked South Melbourne out of the preliminary finals, and then got the winning penalty to put him into a grand final in his first season, so he got a bit of attention, and then John Aloisi basically noticed him from there, and then of course it was on to Melbourne Heart in the youth team.
So pretty remarkable to think that Craig Goodwin upset a lot of Greeks and made a lot of Greeks happy in the one.
At the same time, yeah, Oakley's one big Greek club.
Wow, so then we obviously get on to the Melbourne Heart days now. This is where it all began for him. Incredible to think that at such a young age he'd taken the gamble to go interstate without obviously you guys being there.
Yeah.
So it was very hard for him, as I understand. Anyway, so he finds himself in the Melbourne Heart youth team, but of course, as we know, with the dynamic of footballers playing in youth teams in Australia, it's not a wage that they can really support themselves on if they're not living at home and having to take care of things
not at all.
on their own accord. So his training and playing for Melbourne Hearts youth team, doing so well that he eventually starts training for the senior team.
Correct.
He had to support himself off the pitch. Just talk us through that. So got some little line of information where he supposedly worked at KFC to sustain himself. It goes on to say he survived on a diet of cheap pasta and rice, and there were even days where he battled to afford petrol to get himself to the Melbourne Heart training sessions. You remember this pretty clearly. Talk us through it.
Yes, there was one session where he got up in the morning and he realised he didn't have any petrol to get the training, so he tipped all the drawers he had out in his room and he found $7 in just loose change. Managed to put a little bit of juice in, get himself to training, and after training he didn't have enough petrol to get home, so he basically rang up the wife and just begged him to put a little $100 into his account to get him by. Normally he wouldn't ask for anything unless he was desperate, but it was very tough. Obviously training with the first team, obviously you're on a youth wage and you can't work because you're training full time. So it was extremely tough.
Very tough position to be in, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, luckily for him, the rewards started coming. He made his debut for Melbourne Heart in the Melbourne Derby and got man of the match in that game. Do you remember what his immediate reaction was just in the aftermath of that? Because most players, there'd be a danger that it gets to their head straight away. From what I understand, Craig just literally got on with it.
He did. I mean, even in the tunnel before the game, he was just, he just said he'd been through so much disappointment in previous rejections. He said to let this opportunity go. He didn't feel any nerves. He was just basically so focused on doing well. And I mean, we didn't expect him to do that well. After that, he just took everything in his stride. It was a bit of an avalanche, obviously, because everyone was wondering who he was, where he came from, because he didn't follow any normal pathway. So, it just happened, but he's dealt with it quite well.
So he goes on to see out that season before being picked up by the Newcastle Jets for the 2012-13 season. Why the move, firstly, to New South Wales?
Yeah, I think the Jets basically said that he was in their first team reckoning as a left back at the time. And they were on starter. Yeah, he was always, a winger, but obviously made his debut as a left back, so they saw him as a left back, which he started as, but obviously he excelled as a winger as well, so he got both accolades.
But a classic wide player, versatile.
Oh, for sure, yeah. And it was the Gary Van Egmond at the time. They really convinced him to go, but I really believe that a lot of the credit should probably go to Arthur Pappas, because Arthur moved there as a assistant coach, and I think he just felt as if he owed him something because of getting him over to Oakley.
Yeah, right.
So that probably held a bit of a draw card to go to Newcastle, but it worked out well for him at Newcastle.
And just to touch on Arthur Pappas, not known by a whole lot of people, probably the only case that really springs to mind immediately when you think of people that are in the game. Coaches that are coaching at the highest level that they can, that have absolutely no footballing background as a player. Arthur Pappas' story is that he took on coaching accreditation from a very young age, knew he wasn't going to play, and he's worked his way up through the ranks, which no one else has really even attempted. But anyway, he's now Ange Postecoglou's assistant at Yokohama Marinos in Japan. He had a fair bit to play, just going back in Craig's decision to depart Adelaide and go to Melbourne.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, the massive part. I mean, it was just by chance that Arthur was made aware of Craig's ability, I guess, and existence.
There you go. Wow.
So, as soon as he saw him and got him to Oakley, everything just changed for him. So, we owe Arthur that gratitude, really.
There you go. Wow.
You never know who's watching. That's the thing. You just don't know.
So going back to signing at Newcastle, so did Craig ever he's a Liverpool fan, as you mentioned, did he ever stop and think, wow, I've just gone from working KFC to playing professionally alongside a former Liverpool player that probably didn't have his greatest ever time at Liverpool, but nonetheless an England international, played for Liverpool for a long period of time. I mean, what was that like for Craig as someone that had struggled, as you tell me off camera, to really sort of get a footprint on the game himself? Suddenly he's playing alongside Emile Heskey, a former Liverpool player.
I think he was, he's always been level-headed, but I mean, to be in the presence of someone of Heskey's I guess, reputation.
Yeah.
It was, I think, quite astonishing for him, especially in the game when they played with Del Piero, another legend of the game.
That must have been surreal as well. Sorry to cut you off.
It was crazy. I mean, I know Del Piero got man of the match on Fox, but everyone rated Craig, but he played an absolute blinder. But I think he just knew the company he was in. Yeah. I think he was in total awe.
Wow.
But so just ride on Heskey's back after Heskey scored, it makes a good photo.
So just to make the viewers aware, this is in which round was it? Do you remember?
Round 2.
Round 2, yeah. So Newcastle, Sydney. It was at the Sydney Football Stadium.
Yeah, 43,000 or something like that.
Packed it out. So it was the whole. This was really well marketed by Fox back in the day.
Oh, it was big.
They had the Heskey fan cam. So Del Piero, obviously, no need to touch on how big that was for the game. So you've got Del Piero from Sydney playing against Heskey from Newcastle. Craig obviously playing with Heskey. Craig scored in that game, as well as Del Piero scored a free kick when.
It was Craig's first A-League goal too.
So I mean, this must have been a real surreal moment for him. He might not admit it, but it must have been.
Well, we were there for his debut in Melbourne Heart. We were watching that game on TV, and we couldn't believe what was happening.
Wow.
So,
do you remember, calling him after, or?
I gave him a fair bit of time to settle down and absorb it all, but then I just gave him a ring.
Responsible of you,
I think I was the one that was in awe.
Of course.
But it was good though. No, it's good. It's a bit of a reward for all the hard work, sort of thing. So.
Of course. And he was really at this point now starting to get noticed, at least in an A-League sense.
Yes.
I think it's fair to say. So anyhow, like we mentioned, he scored his first goal against Sydney. Was on the 13th of October, all the way back in 2012. Due to his consistent, amazing performances, he was nominated for the NAB Young Footballer of the Year in October. Something else that he can add to his repertoire. Then on the 8th of April, he joined English Premier League side Reading on trial for 2 weeks. Now, it wasn't the first time he went to England.
No, he did have previous smaller trials years ago. Crystal Palace's under 15s, under 18s. Which he came so close. It was only a matter of 3 months because his birth certificate, born in December and the year goes from August to September, so he missed out by 3 months. Otherwise, they would have signed with their 15s. But Inverness, and of course they got relegated and voided his contract, so it was a lot of bad luck there. But he never got despondent over it. So I've got to get on with it. Wow. So it's just that's football, I guess.
He's a fighter.
Oh yeah, you won't get him to quit.
So tell us, he goes over to Reading. What was this like, the trial that he had there?
Yeah, well, it was funny because Lafondre was actually at Reading at that time, so Craig's training alongside of him. So it's just funny he should end up as a bit of a superstar in Sydney as well. But he did learn an awful lot over there. Things are very cutthroat, but it wasn't to be at that time, I guess. But what he learned over there, we just brought back and obviously made him a better player back here again. So, everything you take, you just build on and just keep on putting it back into the game. So,
brilliant. All right, so we move forward a little bit. In September of 2014, he came back to Adelaide, not to the club, but back to his hometown to sign for Adelaide United. Now, he was pretty well known at this point. Still not really regarded as one of the first players that you think of when you think of A-League superstars, but he was certainly making a steady amount of progress. I think everyone agreed at the time. I certainly remember being very, very satisfied with the fact that we'll bring him back. I definitely watched a lot of him. I thought he was a very tidy player and he had a lot to offer. So when Gombau bought him in September of 2014, I think a lot of us were pretty eager to see what he could produce for his hometown club. Anyhow, he came in, became a fan favourite fairly early on in the piece, and enjoyed an immensely successful stage in his career under the tutelage of Josip Gombau. Now, I just want to ask you before we go any further, your thoughts on Gombau, how that all went, and did Gombau change Craig much as a footballer?
I think he did. I think when he got the call basically from Robbie Middleby at Newcastle to say, look, we've got a deal here, Adelaide are very interested in you, and if you want to go, we can release you. It all happened because they had 4 left-sided players in Newcastle, and they had to lose one to gain a centre-back. So, because the only player that was being sought after by other clubs was Craig, so they thought, well, we've got to let him go so we can get a centre-back. But anyway, it worked out well. But Gombau really liked Craig. I think he just saw he could do something with him, and he did. I mean, he had that attacking flair, and Craig just seemed to suit that style really well. It developed him even more.
So basically he enjoyed a lot of success in that first stint at Adelaide United. Won the 2014 FFA Cup, then went on to obviously win the unforgettable period of success, the 2015-16 Premiership and Championship double, as well as Adelaide United's, very importantly, Adelaide United's most valuable player at the back end of that season, and the Members Player of the Year as well.
Yes.
The double. Yep. So, he must have been on top of the world at this point in time.
Yeah, it's. He loves the fans. He loves the Red Army, the way they just do everything as a supporter group. Yeah. That whole year was a bit of a whirlwind, but I think he really enjoyed his football.
Can I ask you about that? So, there are stories here and there that do come out about what actually went on after, obviously, the club didn't win in the first 8 games of 2015-16. Somehow we end up winning the Premiership and the Championship. What was going on there? Were you having much of a dialogue with Craig before we started to emerge as somewhat of a dark horse in that season?
Yeah, no, obviously Craig was living at home with us at the time. And being dad, I used to quiz him all the time.
Yeah,
to drive him nuts.
Yeah.
It's the players never lost any belief in each other or the confidence in what they could do.
Sure.
It just wasn't quite working. I think it was the Melbourne Victory game where we actually lost 2-1 in Melbourne. That was the catalyst where after half time, I think the players sort of like took it upon themselves to bring a more attacking flair in, and it just seemed to click.
Right.
And they found a combination, I guess, between Gombau and Moore's style, and that seemed to then, the confidence grew.
Wow.
And they were unbeatable. I mean, the Spanish connection with, Sirio and all the other lads, and they were just unbelievable. And Craig just fitted in with them so well, and it wasn't unbelievable. Even Chite, he just came right back into it himself and was banging in goals for fun near the end. So it was a crazy year.
We'll get into the big move overseas in a second, but I just want to ask you, literally in the days following the title win in 2016, around May of 2016, a lot of our best players started to depart. In terms of the local ones, so Steph Moore, Bruce Kamau, Bruce Chite, did Craig speak to many of these guys? Did they have any influence in his decision, which was that obviously it was time? These players had been a part of a winning team, and individually they were all blossoming, and it was just time to move on. Did Craig speak to any of the players? Did he gain any sort of recommendations from anyone, maybe other than yourself, to really consider moving overseas? Or did he just know from a long way back perhaps that it was his time to make a move?
He always had, I guess, feelings to want to go to Europe.
Yeah.
It was just something he wanted to do.
Burning desire.
Of course, the opportunity came up, obviously. Whether he actually spoke to other players, I don't know, but I don't think there would have been an influence in his choice. It was just something he always wanted to do. I mean, it's sort of like part of him didn't want to leave Adelaide, but he had to know. But he was made a big money offer to go to China, which he knocked back.
Wow.
He said it's not about the money, it's about ticking a box. I want to go to Europe and find out. So the money, it was quite substantial, but no. He wasn't interested in it.
And that, I assume, could have set him up a whole lot.
It would have set him up a fair bit.
Yes.
It would have, but he's not a money chaser. There's just a lot of ticking boxes, I think, for him. So,
well, fascinating stuff. So, obviously, the offer comes in for him to move to Sparta in the Eredivisie. Tell us how it all came about, how he was feeling about it, any other things you remember about what was going on in his mind at the time.
The offer came up, and he was actually home at the time, and I remember Alex Pastor, the coach, he had a Skype meeting with him, and had a really good interview, and the coach was actually pretty impressed by his demeanour, asked him about family life and just how he felt at home and how he was he in a relationship at the time and all that sort of stuff, and just to get a gauge on how he felt, and the coach was pretty impressed, so they got him over there, and Yeah, when his first season, pretty cracking year.
Yeah.
It was just the second year, it was like, Dick Apper kept coming in. It sort of like just started to fall apart a little bit.
Yeah, I want you to really tell us what was going on there. So it really looked good for him at the beginning. Now you've spoken at length about how Craig is just not someone that ever gives up. Tell us, what kind of dialogues you were having with him when it did start to look a little bit like disaster, I guess, for him, because obviously there were high hopes. He was at the top of his game. He's gotten a move to a club where seemingly, he is going to be a starting player more often than not, and then all of a sudden he's just not playing football anymore.
Yeah.
What was going on in his mind? Did he have doubts? Were you trying to counsel him? How did it all come about?
Didn't really have to counsel him as such.
Yeah.
He's got a very strong mind, but the first year obviously he finished the end of the season keeping the club up, with 2 assists and the goal at the end there that kept him up. And he's a bit of a club legend at that one day, because they will sack basically 40 to 60% I think of their backroom staff. So he had all the backroom staff hugging him because he kept their jobs. And then the next year it started well, but then Dick Apper came in, but he brought all his own players in, and Craig was basically on the back burner, which I guess probably hurt him a little bit, because that was his first real chance at a decent level to go higher. He did have, I think it was Peckersweiler through bench skip, one of his previous coaches that were interested, but Sparta wouldn't let him go at the end of the season. Said no, we got high hopes, but then it just all turned ugly from there.
Are you able to delve into the fact that he was restricted from moving on and still maintaining a place in Europe?
Yeah, well, I think later in that season, when he was at Sparta, he had Benevento Calcio in the Serie A on sitting, and the club Sparta wouldn't let him go. And then he had Ura Red Diamonds, were highly interested and wanted to send over 2 scouts. Club weren't interested, didn't want to let him go. And so to understand that logic, it was a tough time for him. But that's when, I think it got near the end of the season, that's when I sort of like had a good chat with him about coming back to the A-League and maybe reinventing himself with what he'd learnt over there.
Sure.
So, I mean, if he was like 20 or so, you say, look, I can stay here a couple of more years, maybe work out when you're in the prime of your career, 26, 27, you're already running out of time to pull that stunt. So
absolutely.
Coming back here, he didn't twice, he didn't want to do it. But I think in the end, he realised, with the Asian Cup coming up, I watched Marco Kurz for that previous season, and I just thought he'll shine under him.
Wow.
Just a player, I just thought that he would work wonders with that sort of German discipline. It turned out to be the right move, but
which we'll get onto. But I just want to ask more about the positive times that he did experience in Holland with Sparta. Did he ever speak to you after, for instance, playing against a PSV or an Ajax?
Oh, for sure. I think
because that's got to be the pinnacle of obviously he had definitely made it. He was a professional footballer, but when you're walking out into the Amsterdam arena, that's got to be the moment where you're looking out in a 55,000 crowd and a place which has such an immensely fascinating football history. That's really got to be the moment where your legs do start turning a bit of jelly, because you're just thinking, wow, how have I got myself here?
For sure. I mean, I can't remember whether it was PSV or Ajax, but I remember this one game, might have been in final, but I know he got man of the match and he made the Eredivisie team of the week.
Jeez.
I think he got player of the Eredivisie of the round.
Right.
Playing against, I think they knocked PSV out of the cup.
Okay.
But then I can't remember whether it was Feyenoord and or Ajax, but I know he got man of the match. And it's a crazy, somehow you're on top of the world and then the next minute you're on the bottom, so it's like a roller coaster.
It is, absolutely, and that's probably the best way to describe his whole football journey in a sense.
I always tell a lot of people that it's a massive roller coaster. One minute you're on top of the world, next minute you're down at the dumps. It's how you accept that ride. You've got to accept it because you're going to face it all the time.
But I mean, you yourself, you'd have to admit, it's allowed you to see so much, hasn't it? For such a long period of time, you have a thorough insight into how things operate off the pitch as well as on it, from an Australian perspective for professional players, and you're definitely more educated than most people. And so even though it has been a roller coaster for Craig, you've got such a sound basic knowledge about how it all works, and you must look back and think, it's such a rare thing to have.
It is. It's the knowledge you get out of it. We've been along for the ride as well, obviously, and we probably take a lot of the emotional stuff harder than what he does. He deals with it, but we can't do anything about it.
That's just being a parent, though, isn't it?
It's like any parent. I mean, like all the Adelaide players, you know, we speak with the parents all the time, and they've had to make the whole ride over the years with their little kids, and it can be quite stressful.
It's a savage garden.
It is.
So, getting back to the here and now, it's 2018 and Craig Goodwin decides that he's going to come back to where it all sort of happened for him, I guess, in terms of elevating him to that next level. So he comes back to Adelaide for his second stint. Now, I just want to ask you, what role did you play? How much convincing did it take from you to get the green light sort of going in his own head, and how was he feeling about it? Elaborate for us.
It's like I said earlier, it was like I had to really talk to him about 2 times about it, and I said you've got to sort of like retreat to go forward.
Yeah.
Don't think of it as admitting defeat.
Yes.
It's sort of like just call it a retreat, regroup, and re-go again. I think after the 3rd time, when the club did finally release him, when they realised that, the new football manager realised that he was being treated pretty bad. I mean, when it was made known that he was available, he did have Brisbane initially, then he had Sydney that were chasing, and Melbourne City and Perth. Because I think they had Warren Joyce and Tony Popovich rang him direct, tried to convince him.
Okay.
Perth probably came pretty close, but Marco Kurz was on holidays and he rang Craig, spoke to him.
Wow. So did you speak to Marco Kurz at all?
No. I thought, I'm not getting involved in that. I basically started the ball rolling, and then I just basically said, once they said that they were interested,
it'll look after.
I spoke to Ante Kovacevic.
Okay. Football operations manager, if you don't know.
Yeah, well, I did speak to Chris Kelly originally. I just said, just mention if Craig was available, what do you think? And he said, don't worry, you've got their attention. So I said, good. Okay, get Ante to ring me. I said, but once I spoke to him, I said, okay, leave me out of it.
Okay.
Just speak to his agent, you work it out. You know, so I'm not experienced to talk about all that stuff. I just got the ball rolling, and then when the wheels are in motion, I just left the pros to it then, because it's a bit beyond me. So,
we managed to get him to sign. He comes back to Adelaide United, and we all know how amazingly it's gone for him. Really got the ball rolling with that FA Cup final, scored those 2 cracking goals, the free kick and the winner late on in the game. Was also scoring regularly, scored against the Mariners, scored against the Jets, basically I remember maybe 5 rounds into the A-League this season, where you would usually have Fox Sports raving on and on about a player from an Eastern States club. The conversation was solely on Craig Goodwin. Did it all come about in a way that he could have ever expected, or was he surprising himself to an extent?
Nah, not Craig. I just think it was something that he probably knew that he worked at, so he deserves.
Yeah.
Because he has a never say die attitude. I mean, I guess one of the accolades that probably the fans in the Red Army don't realise is that they were probably a big part of him wanting to come back.
Right.
Because he never forgot what happened in the grand final year.
Yeah, who could?
So, but yeah, they play a massive part. I mean, he's got a great deal of respect for old Red Wig Steve and the Red Army.
Yep.
And also the fans in general. So they played a big part in him wanting to come back, but it's just his own bloody mindedness that the way he's gone, because he just has that attitude. So yeah, he wouldn't expect any less. He gets very down on himself if things don't go well. So he drives himself. So.
I recall a period where we weren't performing greatly as a collective, maybe towards sort of around 9, around 10, and Craig had stopped scoring, and there wasn't a whole lot of criticism, but that from sections there were people saying, well, Craig's nowhere near what we saw in the beginning of the season, etc. Why is he not in the same kind of form now? Did he almost make it harder for himself by being in such unbelievable form to begin with? Because I certainly never thought his performances were ever bad, whether he was scoring or not. It's just the fact that people became used to seeing him score goals. And let's not forget, he's a provider, but because he was in such a rich goal scoring vein of form, people just had this probably unrealistic expectation for him to score goals every week. Did this affect him at all? I'm guessing not, but given that he got used to scoring goals for a while there, and then suddenly they've dried up for a bit, would that have ever traditionally played on his mind?
No, I think he expected it. I mean, we look back on the games, those individual games, and you'll notice that I think even when they played Perth that first time, I think when we lost our first home game to the Cup, they had two players on him all the time, because they just wanted to stop the delivery.
Classic Tony.
So exactly. And that will make him a good coach. But a few teams, obviously Sydney, got to see him again, and then they put two players on him. So, but he expects that too. So he's got to reinvent himself again. Like, what do I do now? So. If you play well, you are going to get marked out of the game, and you work out what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses. So he's had to reinvent himself. So he's had a little few peaks and troughs since then, but he won't stop learning from that either.
No, definitely not. Also, just want to touch on the whole Asian Cup fiasco that really didn't work out from Graham Arnold's point of view in the end, you could say. But basically, I recall a time where everyone, from across the country was calling for Craig Goodwin to be named in that Asian Cup squad, even though his form in a goal-scoring sense wasn't where he might have liked it to be right at the time when the squad was picked. He was still definitely playing well enough to get in that squad, at least in my opinion, and I wouldn't hesitate to say most people's opinions. It turns out that he's not picked in the squad. Australia end up pretty well failing. I would suggest not making a semi-final. Individual performances questioned from various players throughout the entire tournament. But for Craig Goodwin, a real telling moment for me is when he was asked about it, and he said he was very, very, very firm when he came out in the media and said, "I'm not going to let it affect me. I'm just going to move on, and I've got bigger fish to fry. I've got goals, and I need to adhere to what my goals are." This was telling for me because there was a perception that Craig Goodwin was sort of a real quiet guy that was a bit camera shy, but this was him really making a stand and making people aware of the fact that even though he didn't get the Asian Cup selection and that things had not gone his way in the past, it just wasn't going to break him at all.
Not at all. He's been through too much disappointment in his career to let another little moment get him down. Yeah, it annoys him. He was disappointed because he thought he deserved a spot, but at the same time he knows he can't do anything about it. You've got to get on with it. And again, it's how you deal with those bad times that define who you are. So he let it be known. He said, "I'm not going to have a sook about it," I think was the words he used. I just got to get on with it. He told Graham too when he rang him, he said, "Look, I'm going to prove you wrong." So
he used those words. Wow.
I'm going to prove you wrong. And he said, "Well, that's the words I want to hear you say," sort of thing. So,
I love hearing that.
But that's just he's done his whole career. He just always proved people wrong because he's just too bloody minded to quit. But
was he? Did he really expect to get in there? He was involved under Postecoglou around 2016 in the national team. Probably again not as much as he would have liked, but definitely got a sniff there. Did he sort of, given a marriage with his form and his past involvement in the Socceroos, did he pretty much expect to get there? And
he never expects anything. He just would like to be given the chance to show, but he's never really had that chance within the Socceroos squads to really come on and actually have a go. I think he got 8 minutes against England, 2016 or something.
Correct.
He just wants that opportunity. I've always said to him, I said, "You always seem to turn it on in big games. The bigger the game, the more you seem to turn it on."
Absolutely.
And I thought, well, there's not much bigger games than the Socceroos, and I think he just wants that opportunity to prove it. That's why I said, "I'm going to prove you wrong." So whether his chance comes or not, who knows? But he'll be ready for it when it does.
No questions. Well, that pretty much brings us to where we are now with things. There was an article that came out in the Advertiser linking Craig Goodwin with various moves across Asia. Now, I just want to say I made it very clear from probably the third week of the A-League season that I knew, given how Craig Goodwin's form was at the time, that it was going to be extremely hard to expect that there would be longevity in his second stint at the club. Obviously, nothing's come up yet. The transfer window's about to close. You know, I don't want to get you to say anything that you might not want to say, but do you see Craig jumping at an opportunity perhaps in the summer? I mean, obviously he would have deserved it if it comes up, but yeah, I just want to get your thoughts. I mean, it's always hard as a United fan because our best players inevitably always leave, but I just want to get a gauge on where you're at with it. Like, you know, do you expect to not see Craig Goodwin playing for Adelaide United in the near future? How do you think it's all going to come about?
Well, I hope he is, because it sucks trying to watch him at 3 a.m. in the morning on Skype or live TV.
Getting a legal stream on the internet.
Yeah, but no, look, it's. I mean, there is interest from Asia.
Yeah.
There's no offers at the moment.
Okay.
But I mean, our window closes, I think, tomorrow. But that's only for players coming into the A-League. If you look at Japan, I think, and China, I think their window finishes later in February.
Yeah.
Korea's is March 23, I think.
Okay.
So players can leave up to that time if.
Well, I've got my phone on just in case any updates come through. Given that there's still that.
It would have to be. It would have to be the
time.
right move. I mean, Craig's getting in the prime of his career now. I think if it goes, you know, it would have to be something that would help set him up. But I mean, he's absolutely enjoying his football at Adelaide. You know, after what happened in Holland, you know, he started to not lose the love of the game, but I think it started to affect his love of what he was doing.
Yeah.
Even though he would never give up trying.
Really well said.
Being back in Adelaide. I mean, he is grateful to Glenn Clissold, the Red Army, with the old Goodwins on fire
The capo, yeah.
Because the Sparta Rotterdam fans, they started that up as soon as he got there for whatever reason. And
really? Wow.
They used to sing it all the time. So when Adelaide and the Red Army started doing it, I think Craig was quite chuffed for that. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, credit to Glenn for pulling that one in the crowd. So
wow. That's
Sparta Rotterdam do actually like that too, because I sent them the video because I said, well, you started it. So.
Yeah, wow, that's incredible. There you go. Well, that pretty much brings us to the end of Craig's journey in regards to everything that's happened to him up to now. So we're just going to jump into the preview quickly. So we play Brisbane Roar Saturday night. Tony, coming in for us is Mirko Boland and Carlo Amiento. Unavailables Baba Diawara and Lachlan Brook. For Brisbane Roar, coming in is Thomas Christensen, Jacob Pepper, Eric Baltiak and Matt Mackay. For them, they have Connor Toole out, as well as Jay Barnett and Brett Holman and Steph Mork, also part of the title-winning team in 2015-16 for Adelaide United. Unavailable, so they've got a few coming in Brisbane. Just in regards to their historical stats, we've won 18 times against them. Against us, they've won 17. There's been 9 draws. We've scored 50 goals against them, and against us, they've scored 55. Tony, getting into the key components, do you feel like this is the best chance we have to win back-to-back home games for the first time this season?
I think it is, but I also think it's a must.
Yeah.
Where we sit, I mean, we're playing a little bit of leapdog with Wellington at the moment.
Yes.
We're sitting 1 point behind Melbourne City, and then we have them the following week.
Yep.
So if we're going to consolidate a top 4 spot, it's a must.
It's a must.
And when we made it hard against the Central Coast last week, but we got the job done in the end, which was fantastic to do it that way. But it should have been locked up earlier.
Definitely.
But most definitely, Brisbane, it's a must.
Yep, I can't disagree with any of that. Brisbane Roar, they've got an awful defensive record and just lost arguably their best centre-back, Avram Papadopoulos, definitely their most experienced. He's gone back to Greece where he endeavours to retire. Your thoughts on this? I mean, you know, I feel like even though we've struggled to score a few goals at home this season, this is definitely a game where we're not going to see such a struggle.
Nah, I think that first half last week was, and even the players would probably say it wasn't the best.
Yeah.
I mean, it got better as it went on the second half.
But a complete write-off.
I think that'll be in the back of their minds this week.
Yeah.
They're going to want like a Melbourne victory type first half.
Yeah.
It's just to finish them off.
Absolutely, yeah. Now, an interesting one for me. With Boland back, we expect that he'll definitely feature in the game, as well as Blackwood having gotten on the score sheet last week. Is it now time for some critical changes to be made to the starting 11, in your opinion?
It's going to be interesting. They just signed this new striker now. He only arrived today, so whether he's actually physically ready to actually even play, I mean, you make a long flight. This is the sort of time you'll start pulling muscles, and I don't think I want to risk injuring the striker.
Well, we're assuming he won't be involved, and we'll mention him in a second.
I think Mirko would be off the bench, though.
Yeah, you think?
For how long? It's going to be a hot day. It's his first game back.
Has just come back from taking some personal leave as well.
Yes.
Went over to Germany for a family situation. But from what I've been told, he's featured in 1 or 2 youth league games throughout the entire time that he's been injured. Do you think he's not quite going to be match hardened enough to start, obviously?
I would expect. I mean, generally I sort of do know sometimes before the game a bit early, but I don't divulge that to anyone. But as at the moment, we don't know anything. But I'd love to see him come off the bench. I mean, he's proven in quite a few of his previous games his quality. Mm-hmm. He's a smart guy too. So I'd say you'd like to see him back to his best. Whether Georgie starts up front, it would be nice to see Halloran back on the wing and a real striker up front. Because that's.
I think everyone's definitely in favour of that happening.
Oh yeah, I mean he was signed as a right winger, so we'd love to see him actually back.
Yeah, exactly right. And you got to feel for him. I mean, not that he gets stick or anything like that, but just for his own development.
He's thrown in a tough position.
Yeah,
there's a great
very
lad.
hard to carry that load.
Quality player, but when you're asked to play as a striker when you are a winger, week in week out, that's just the job. You've got to do a job whatever the coach wants you to do. But
exactly right.
It would be nice to see him back on the right.
Yeah, definitely. Can't disagree at all, mate. Now, Marco Kurz, linked to the vacant Brisbane Roar job just last night. I think it was reported in the Courier Mail in a joint article with Val Migliaccio, who's someone you've known for a very long time, I believe.
Yeah.
Anyway, is this a big distraction, Marco Kurz being linked with the Raw job? And also just wanted to touch on the fact that we've got a fairly poor home record against Brisbane Roar.
It's funny when you talk about, rumours in the paper about coaches or players going, it doesn't really affect the players at all. They go out and they know they've got a game this week. It may sit in the back of their mind, but once they're on that pitch and they cross that line, the job gets done.
Wow.
So it wouldn't really affect them at all.
Because fans do seem to think
fans take it obviously very seriously.
Yeah.
It does, because I guess while the players are training and taking things very seriously, the fans have got something to think about before the next game, and it does affect them quite hard, especially when they endear themselves to someone that's doing really well. So and they're up and leading.
Are you sort of suggesting that given there is this sort of fiasco going on with Marco Kurz's contract being left in limbo, are you saying that the players don't even think about that?
They wouldn't focus on it at all. I know Craig doesn't talk about it at all.
Yeah, wow.
But I mean, I'd be shocked if he actually went to Brisbane.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't seem to spend the cash at all real big. You know, and it depends how many players he's stuck with. He's sort of built a pretty good squad here at Adelaide.
Yeah.
And obviously if he was to stay again, I dare say he would probably start signing players more so into his style of play.
Definitely.
If he had the reins to do so, but I'd be shocked if he went to Brisbane personally.
Yeah, and you've got to look at that Brisbane squad and think it needs a massive overhaul. And, you know, given that there's been a few disgruntled scenarios that have gone on with the ownership group of the Brisbane Roar, Indonesian-based owners, you'd think it's a pretty mammoth task, and probably not doing yourself much of a service to go there when you've basically impressed so many people being in the Adelaide United job. So.
Well, you know, they're trying to sell the club at the moment. They've already knocked back 2 or 3 offers.
Yeah.
And they've been quite big offers.
Yeah.
And they're still, I think they're hanging out for 20 mil. But I mean, if they sell, who's to say the new owners come in and go, well, why did you sign him? We didn't want him.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's all that speculation. As to me, if the coach was to jump into that role, he'd want to be getting paid really well.
Yeah, no, I think that's pretty much the case there. How much do we have to look out for them, given that they're not likely to play finals and they're most likely playing for Pride? Could this present an element of danger to us?
For sure. Like Central Coast last week, sometimes when you know you've got no chance of making finals, there's nothing better than actually ruining someone else's day.
Yeah, and the other part.
That's all you've got left to play for. So, you know, that side didn't finish 4th or something because, you know, we knocked them off, you know, stuff them. But yeah, that's all you've got left to play for. And you underestimate a side like that, that's going to be your undoing. So
especially that poor home record against.
Oh yeah, I think especially after the last game we had with them, it was quite a fiery game. So
we made it hard for ourselves in the end.
A few players may not forget that game, so I dare say Marco will be into their heads saying, "Look what happened last week. Look what happens with Brisbane if we underestimate them." And I think there might be a little bit of psychological getting inside their heads this week and trying to make them wake up a little bit.
Yeah, well, okay.
Some of the players will be pretty hard on themselves too and not want that to happen either.
Yeah, because that was a pretty poor first half last time out against the Mariners. So yeah, I dare say that they'll be ensuring that they're all as pumped as they possibly can be going into Saturday night. How have you seen our season generally? I know I sort of asked you a similar sort of question at the beginning of this show, but just want you to sort of touch on the whole season and also your views on the current matchday experience at Cooper Stadium.
Yeah, I mean, you can't beat Cooper Stadium when it's rocking. I mean, the FA Cup. I mean, we played the grand final at Adelaide Oval when we 50,000 people. We know what Adelaide can turn it on when they want to.
Yeah.
But the crowds, sometimes you just question why do people not want to turn up in big numbers. I mean, okay, they turn up for the big games, but really, it'd be nice to get them there all the time. If you've got 10,000 people, it can be very noisy, and the bigger the crowd with the Red Army, the bigger the noise. And they were the 12th man in the FA Cup.
Yeah,
they were awesome, and you need it. But I mean, the season did plateau a little bit, and we got so much reward at the beginning, and then sort of it started to drop off a bit when we had the home losses or the draws.
Yeah.
But I mean, still they weren't wins. So it's been a bit of an up and down sort of ride. We turned it on against Melbourne Victory, so we've proven that we've got what it takes. But then when you have a poor performance last week against Central Coast, you think, well, what happened against Melbourne Victory? So I don't know. It's at least it's not 8 no wins in a row. I think we've got to aim for fourth. And then if we get any higher than that, I think it's a bonus. But we've got to get fourth position.
Okay. I mean, obviously, teams that finish 5th and 6th have never gone on to really
play your way,
make the final. I think that's definitely, and it's achievable as well. It's an achievable goal, given that we'll have hopefully less injuries going forward and less jam-packed periods of games, travel, hot summer, tough grounds going against us injury-wise. I think just in regards to attendances, if you look back historically, we're always sort of hitting the 10,000 mark when we are winning frequently at Cooper Stadium. Do you put it down to that?
I think so. I mean,
given that we've struggled to win back-to-back games,
I guess gratification is fantastic when you're winning, because you go to a game, you win, and you come away with that euphoria. You want to go to the next game. But you only got to look at Central Coast, and teams like that, Brisbane, look at their crowds. But if you looked at a few years ago in Brisbane in the grand final, there was just a sea of orange. Where are those people week in, week out? You just question, what makes people want to go all the time. But winning obviously does draw a big crowd, and it helps. So I guess if we started to win more games at home, we might find the crowds jumping. But I guess they'll be back in the finals.
Yeah, no doubt. I just want you to quickly touch on your affinity with Reds fans in a general sense, and also more closely with the Red Army. You are involved. You're sporting the Red Army polo there. Tell us how that's been for you over the whole journey, including the seasons where Craig wasn't playing here.
Yeah, no, even when Craig was in Holland, I went to every game. I'm a football tragic. I watch every A-League game. I love to study all the teams and just watch all the players and keep up with everything. But the Red Army are awesome. I mean, all the lads here, Glenn and all of them, they work really hard. They create an amazing atmosphere. But going to the Hope Inn, just chatting to them, sort of thing. You realise how much effort they actually put in. I just thought at the time, I'm going to join them. They just as a member, putting money where their mouth is, because they put it into good use. Because you see it at all the games, even last week with Mickey Moroney's big birthday banner, and you think that's awesome. And I look at that and it just warms your heart when you see stuff like that. But you know, like Redwig Steve, you get to speak to these blokes and they bleed for the club. But as a football tragic, you know, being a Palace fan, you know, it's just staying up in the Premier League is my grand final. Just being at all the games, and I just love it. But having your own lad play there is awesome.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, we're just going to get towards the end of the show here, but before we do, I just want to quickly ask you, our key player on the day against Brisbane Roar versus theirs, who are they?
Yeah, I mean, Craig will have obviously his own part to play, but you look at Asayas, I mean, the guy just leads by example.
Yeah, for sure.
He's awesome, you know, you've got to admire him for it.
Did so well to take that goal against the Mariners, didn't he?
No, he's incredible. I mean, he's an awesome bloke as well. You get him over the white line, he does have that eagle streak about him, which is great, so I love that.
Yeah.
But he's just, if he's firing, the whole team seems to fire.
Yep.
And you've got to look at him and just go, no, I think especially against the captain's role in this game, it's a massive game. Okay, everyone should expect to win, but it's not going to be that easy. So we need to get out there and get the job done, and then we can work out what we'll do against Melbourne City.
And for Brisbane? Thank you.
I like Jamie Young in goals, but hopefully he doesn't save any. But I think he's an awesome guy. Waiting all his time.
Had a great season.
Michael Theo when he was there, I mean, he fought his way into that role, but players like him, I mean, Matt Mackay back's probably a good one for them.
Baltiak.
He's another guy.
For them.
I don't know whether he's lived up to his reputation, but he's a player that if he turns it on as well, like I say, he could have a massive influence. So
he actually reminds me a lot of your boy. I was watching him against. I actually saw Brisbane versus Perth a couple of weeks back at Suncorp, and they were losing 4-2 at the time, and he just wouldn't stop running. That's there's a lot of likeness to Craig there, I think. And he returns for them on Saturday night.
That's a shame.
Not a good in for us at all. Your final prediction, Tony?
Well, on the way here, I was thinking about that when I won Adelaide 3-0.
3-0.
Yeah.
You're a very confident man then.
Yeah.
More confident than a lot of us. Just before we conclude, the club has signed Geordie Thomason. Today it's been unveiled. Strikers come in, so I'm sure Craig's pretty happy to see that news. Definitely takes some pressure off him.
He wants someone at the end of the cakes.
Brilliant. Well, we look forward to seeing what Mr. Geordie Thomason can do. He's been brought over from the Eredivisie, 28-year-old striker. Tony, just before we say goodbye, just tell us about these kits here. So
we've got Craig's one of his tops from the grand final here when he had 16. Obviously he's got 11 now, so which I think is that one there. He's worn that number before for Newcastle and in junior years as well. He used to wear number 8 all the time, so that was my dad's number. But the old man died when Craig was only I think 1 year old. So my dad used to wear it. So that was always a big number for us over the years. And I did bring along my Anzac top, which is quite dear to me as well. So
beautiful.
But that's a shout out to the Red Army guys.
Always. Well, Tony, that brings us to the end. Thank you so much for coming in. It's been an absolute pleasure listening to all the stories that you have on and off camera about Craig's progression through the ranks, and more so just the fact that you're so in touch with the wider football community in general, and Adelaide United fans, and like I said, you have a real respect and appreciation for those that are always coming out to games, win or lose, and you're one of those fans as well. So it's been great to get you on the show, and we really look forward to seeing what Craig does, not only this season with Adelaide United, but in his own future. I'm fairly positive that he's going to make it eventually in Europe and stay there. So we look forward to seeing where he goes with his career, and thank you for being there for all of us, for guiding Craig through as a player, as your son, and for looking out for other players as well, which people may or may not know about, and everything else you do. It's been fantastic to get an insight from a parent of a player, which you don't often hear too much from them. So we're very appreciative here that you've come and lended your time to us, especially on a weeknight. Tony Goodwin, thank you so much.
No worries. I think your wife Jenny needs probably more credit than I do.
Thanks to her as well.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you soon. Cheers.